All right, shalom, 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 brother and sister, brother Kazak Yah. With this is the, I think, fourth part, but now I'm going to kind of reduce everything together in this particular video because I want to talk about this brother here, brother Adam Maarschalk, teaching on Revelation Revealed. So what I want to do, without further ado, I want him to go ahead and talk, and I'm going to interject as he mentions things to point out some things for the clarity of those that follow a subscribe or ascribe to this doctrine of preterism and Israel replaced theology, which means that the church, that's what this whole thing is about. The church have taught that the church has replaced Israel. On the day of Pentecost, it goes back to the day of Pentecost when they, according to Christian church, received the Holy Ghost, received the Spirit. And so from that point forward, Israel had been replaced with the Christian church. Okay, with that said, brother Adam, go for it.
Some details on that phrase, which appears so many times in the book of Revelation, and a number of times in Revelation 13.
Now you're just coming in the middle because I'm just kind of, I'll let you know when to start tuning in because he's kind of doing some preliminary things. Okay, so I'll kind of thumb up and then you know to start listening.
So the first question, or the first passage is Revelation 16, 10 to 11, the fifth bowl being poured out on the beast. Here is that description in these two verses, Revelation 16, 10 to 11. The fifth angel poured out his bowl on the throne of the beast, and his kingdom became full of darkness, and they gnawed their tongues because of the pain. And they blasphemed the God of heaven because of their pains and their sores, and did not repent of their deeds. So notice that this bowl is poured out on the beast's throne and kingdom, so his domain, where he headquarters, where he was active. And I want us to consider this fact in light of an observation that a number of preterist teachers and websites have rightfully made.
Okay, stop. So you're making an observation based off of a preterist teacher. Okay, and the preterist teacher, he's making an observation based off of his what was the man's name? Kenneth. Well, he'll mention the guy's name, but this is the premise of his belief of this doctrine. Here we go.
Amen. And that observation is one that Pastor Michael was opening up in such a fantastic way from Leviticus 26. And that observation is that the seven seals, the seven trumpets, and the seven bowls were opened, sounded, and poured out on first century Israel. So Judea, Samaria, Galilee. That was the recipient of all seven bowls, seals, and trumpets.
Okay, so he's saying all the seven seals, seven bowls, and seven trumpets was fulfilled in first century Israel. I think that's what he said. All of the seven seals. Okay, let me just, because I made a note. I actually listened because I wanted to make sure I was following what he was saying. He says, all seven seals, bowls, and trumpets was poured out on first century Israel. Okay, and he referenced Leviticus 26 and 18. Okay, he said, and he made a reference to, let me let him talk and I will read that. Okay, go ahead.
I completely agree with that observation, and Michael did a great job showing how Leviticus 26 foreshadowed that with the prediction that one day in Israel's last days, they would receive sevenfold judgment for the rebellion. Okay,
so now what he's quoting is he's quoting Leviticus 26, and I believe it's 26 and verse 18. All right, so let's see. Let's go there right quick and see. Now, you got to understand that he's speculating based off of this preterist teacher, Kenneth, whatever his name is. I haven't got to his name, Kenneth somebody. He mentions his name, but he's about 70 years old now, so he's one of his people that he goes to for his now I have the this is the Reader's Digest. This is the Reader's Digest. I might have to go to my hard copy because it doesn't have any numbers of chapters. So what I'm gonna do is just give me 1 second here, and I'm gonna pull up my computerized version because I thought that that Reader's Digest Bible had the verses, and I thought it had the chapters and the verses. So apparently it doesn't. So let's go to Leviticus 28, and he's quoting Leviticus 28 and what I say 18, 26 and 18. So he's using that at 26 and 18. Okay, he says, I will, if you will not yet for all this hearken to me, I will punish you 7 times more for your sins. Now his premise on that is that this is talking about the 7 trumpets, 7 bowls, 7 seals. We can't see that here. That's somebody's theory. Okay, so it's wrong. There's no proof of that. This is his theory. Okay, if that be the case, every time we see 7-fold, then a judgment meaning 7-fold, then that's talking about the 7 trumpet. I'm not going to do that because that's a waste of time. Okay, so that's what he uses as his supporting thesis. Not scripture, but this preterist teacher named Kenneth, who I can't remember his last name. All right. Okay, go ahead. Ooh, sorry.
So with that being said, here's a quote that agrees with what Pastor Michael shared. This is a quote from Kenneth Gentry.
Okay, Kenneth Gentry, that's his name, Kenneth Gentry. So I'm making notes. So he's the preterist guy, Kenneth Gentry. I couldn't think of his last name. So basically, his doctrine is based off of Kenneth Gentry, who's a preterist theologian who follows the doctrine of Calvinism, which basically deals with the Calvinists believe that you can't keep the law, so we're saved by grace alone, not by obeying the laws, statutes, commandments. We're going to deal with that in a little bit. Okay? Back to Brother Adam.
In a book called 4 Views on the Book of Revelation by Stanley Gundry and C. Martin Pate, on page 72, as he's representing the preterist view, Kenneth Gentry says, now John turns his attention to further judgments on the land of Israel by means of the 3 woes and the 7 bowls in chapters 15 and 16.
So that's why you got to be very careful with these commentaries. These commentaries will have you believe in something. This is what this means because the commentary said that. You have to be able to line upon line, precept upon precept, read that chapter to see. If you read Deuteronomy, I should say, Leviticus 26 in its entirety, it is a companion to Deuteronomy 28, which basically is the same thing, talks about what would happen to Israel. Verses 1 through 15 talks about the blessings. If they obey the statutes, laws, and commandments, blessed you're going to be in the city, blessed in the field, blessed shall be the fruit of thy womb, ... But then verse 16 says what? Let's just kind of read it. Verse 16, verse 16 in Deuteronomy 28, 28 and 16. All right. So 28 and 16, it says, verse 15 starts 15. My bad. Verse 15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken to the voice of Yah, your Elohim, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes which I commanded this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. So, verse 1 through 14 is the blessing. Verse 15 through 68 is the curses that will come upon Israel. Okay, now, so you can't use Leviticus 26 exclusively, because Leviticus 26 has to be in conjunction with Leviticus chapter Deuteronomy 28, which also is continued in chapter 29 and 30. Verse 30, I'm going to come back, but I'm going to let him talk some more, but I'm going to come back and I'm going to explain to you why you can't do that with Leviticus 26 to say all the trumpets, bowls, and signs was fulfilled in Leviticus 26, because it's not a complete prophecy. All right.
As many know, Penitentiary is known for his books and DVDs which teach that the beast was Rome and Nero. And by bringing him up, I don't mean any disrespect. He's done some fantastic work. I have a lot of respect for his research. But there's a contradiction here when he says that, number one, all 7 bowls judgments were for Israel, but number 2, Rome was the beast.
Okay, now we got to see what another thing you got to see is he now is attacking now the person that he's following, the preterist teacher, Kenneth Gentry, because Kenneth Gentry's diagnosis is that Rome is the beast. But now he's saying, oh no, Rome not the beast. We got contradictory, because now he's going to explain himself. But the prophecies with regards to the 4th beast, which is Rome, and we're going to break it down, and then we're going to break it down so the blind man can see. All right. But it's futuristic. He's trying to make that pass when the prophecy that was spoken in Revelation was future at the end of days. Okay? Go ahead, Brother Adam.
When the fact is, as we've read, Revelation 16:10 says that the 5th bowl was poured out on the throne in the kingdom of the beast. And I used to be inconsistent on that point as well.
So he disagrees.
There are several reasons why it's valid to say that Israel was the target of the 7 seals, trumpets, and bowls. One of them we already kind of discussed. Leviticus 26:18-20 repeatedly warns that a time would come when they would be punished 7 times for their sins. This would be called, as Pastor Michael pointed out, the execution of the vengeance of his covenant.
We already proved that that's wrong.
The covenant imagery of Mount Sinai in Exodus 19, this is a topic I addressed last year. It's no coincidence that appears at the time of the 7th trumpet, the 7th seal, and the 7th bowl. It's covenant, it's for Israel. The second reason I'm going to point out is that Revelation 16:1, which introduces the bowls, shows that the target of these bowls is what is called the earth. I'll read that verse. Then I heard a loud voice from the temple saying to the 7 angels, "Go and pour out the bowls of the wrath of God on the earth." Some translations say the land. We'll talk about that more when we come to Revelation 13 here. But it's a specific land, the land of Israel, that was to be the recipient of these bowls, including the 5th bowl. So, in looking at this, if we agree that the 7 bowl judgments of Leviticus 26 were reserved for Israel alone, and not for Rome or anyone else, then...
Stop. No, the 7 bowls, 7 seals, 7 trumpets is not a judgment on Israel. In any circle that you go to, in any prophetic circle, nobody anywhere, I've never heard nobody say any foolishness that all 7 bowls, seals, and trumpets is for Israel. That is the most dumb doctrine I've ever heard. Okay. Now, he also mentioned about the earth. He says that Revelation 16:1. Man, I wish I had my hard copy. I got this here, but this is Reader's Digest Illustrated, but it doesn't have numbers. So, how do I find the verse I'm looking for without the numbers? Right? I can't read through the whole thing to find it. Right? I don't have time in this video. So. Let's read Revelation 16:1, and this is what he's alluding to, right? Okay, 16:1. He says, "I heard a great voice out of the temple saying unto the seven angels, go your way and pour out the vials of the wrath of Elohim upon the earth." His theory is based on this word earth. The Greek word, he's going to mention it in his dissertation. The word gay in Greek is the word used for earth in this particular case. His theory is that this earth is talking about the land of Israel. Now, can you see why people are so confused? So if his theory is correct, that this word earth is in relationship to Israel, everywhere we see in the Greek text where the word gay is used is a reference to Israel. Okay? So he's off on that. Now, just for the sake of it, I thought I had wrote down some references that you can go and look at. Okay, yeah, I did. I wrote down, as a matter of fact, we're going to cover it later on because he's going to go and explain that in one of his other points. So let's hold off on that. Okay, go ahead, Brother Adam. Oops.
And to say that the beast was wrong and that the fifth bowl was poured out of the beast, it is to say that 6 of the bowls were for Israel and 1 was for Rome. In other words, it was not a 7-fold judgment. It was a 6-fold judgment upon Israel and a 1-fold judgment upon Rome. Does that make sense?
No, it doesn't. It's stupid. It's absolutely wrong. It's asinine. Okay? Because irregardless to what you say, the 7 bowl, 7 vial, 7 sealed judgments are judgment for, as it says in verse 1, for the earth, which means what? Everyone on the planet is going to be a recipient of those judgments. That's why we had the pandemic, the coronavirus. It's not exclusive to Israel. It's not exclusive to the Roman Empire. It's all inclusive to every nation represented is experiencing the judgments of the Most High as a result of this coronavirus. As the Messiah said, famines and pestilence and earthquakes shall be in the last days. So, Brother Adam, go back to the table. That's off, way off.
Also, in Revelation 16:11, the second verse that we read, he talks about pains and sores. And we should ask, if we give a good look to the works of Josephus and all the details of what transpired during the 3.5 years of the first 3.5 years of the war before Jerusalem fell, from AD 66 to AD 70.
He nervous. He's drinking water now.
Who was it that would have experienced pains and sores?
So you're going to read out the works of Josephus.
Was it Rome, or was it Israel?
And all of that is not necessary.
When we read Josephus' description of the civil war and the famine conditions and the dead bodies lying unburied for days at least, it's easy to imagine that there were a lot of pains and sores in Israel. So I think that's what's going on there in verse 11. And the second point that I want to look at is Daniel 7:11 and Revelation 19:20.
All right, hold on. Now, before you go to the second point, this is the second point. What I want to point out, I mentioned to you that if you're going to use Leviticus 26, and you have to also connect that with Deuteronomy 28. So with regards to Leviticus 26, real quick, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time reading the chapter. You can read it on your own accord. But if we look at Leviticus 26, the one that he quoted, it's the same thing, and I want to show you the same language, right? Verse Leviticus. Let's read read 3 verses, right? You shall make you shall make you know ye, I should say, it says ye. Ye shall make you no idols, nor graven images, neither rear up a standing image, neither shall you set up any image of stone in your land to bow unto it, for I am Yahweh your Elohim. So, what's he talking about? He's giving them some instructions for going into the land that he promises to their father Abraham, which was passed down to Isaac, Isaac, and Yaakov or Jacob. Right? He says, 26, you shall keep my Shabbats and reverence my sanctuary. I am Yahweh. If you walk in my statutes and keep my commandments and do them, then I will give you rain in due season, and the land shall yield her increase, and the trees of the field shall yield their fruit. Right? Verse 5 says, and threshing shall reach unto vintage, and vintage shall reach unto sowing time, and you shall eat your bread to full and dwell in your land safely. I will give you peace in the land, and you shall lie down, and none shall make you afraid, and I will rid evil beasts out of your land, neither shall the sword go through your land. You shall chase your enemies, and they shall fall before you by the sword. And 5 of you shall chase 100, and 100 of you shall put 10,000 to flight. And your enemies shall fall before you by the sword. For I will have respect unto you, and make you fruitful, and multiply you, and establish my covenant with you. And you shall eat old store, and bring forth the old because of the new. And I will set my tabernacle among you, and my soul shall not abhor you. I will walk among you, and will be your Elohim, and you shall be my people. I am Yah, your Elohim, which brought you forth out of the land of Mizraim, that you should not be their bondmen. And I have broken the bands of your yoke and made you go upright. Now, so that's verse 1 through 13, which is a reduplication of Deuteronomy 28. If you look at verse 14, it says, but if you will not hearken unto me, and will not do all these commandments, and you shall despise my statutes, or if your soul abhor my judgments, so that you will not do all my commandments, but that you break my covenant, I will also do this unto you. I will even appoint over you terror, consumption, and burning of you, that shall consume the eyes and cause sorrow of heart, and you shall sow your seed in vain, for your enemy shall eat it up. And I will set my face against you. You shall be slain before your enemies. They that hate you shall reign over you, and you shall flee when no one pursue you. Now, that's not talking about the end of a people. That's talking about going into captivity, which it is a duplication or a companion to Deuteronomy 28, which says similar things from verse 1. It shall come to pass, if you shall hearken diligently to the voice of Yahweh your Elohim, to observe and to do all his commandments which I command thee this day, that Yahweh Elohim will set thee on high above all nations of the earth. And all these blessings shall come on thee and overtake thee, if thou hearken unto the voice of Yahweh the Elohim. So I'm not going to read it all the way down, but if you go down, as I covered already in verse 14, it says in Deuteronomy 28:14, and thou shalt not go aside from any of the words which I command thee this day, to the right hand or to the left, to go after other deities to serve them. Right? That's the same thing. If you notice, both of them have 14 verses. 14 verses. The 15th verse is where he pronounces that if you don't, it shall come to pass, if you will not hearken to the voice of Yah your Elohim, to observe to do all these things, commandments and statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses come upon thee and overtake thee. Now, if you notice in Leviticus 26, he said that you would be, right, in your enemy's land. And let's see, hold on a second. Let's go back to Leviticus 26. Okay. And let's make this comparison, because I want to take you somewhere else. Okay. And please pardon me if I appear to be going fast. If you need to back this video up and start it over and stop it, whatever, so you can read what I'm giving you, do so. But I'm trying to make sure I can get this in right without making it too lengthy and long, right? Okay, because I got a lot to cover in this video. All right, so now, verse, what was it we talked about? No, it wasn't 13. It was during the curse. It was verse Verse 17, I will set my face against you, and you shall be slain before your enemies. They that hate you shall reign over you, and you shall flee when no one pursues you. Okay? Okay, now when he goes down here, we talks about, I will punish you 7 times for your sins. Okay. Something else comes to my mind, right? Let me see. Hold on a second. Okay, now you got to go here to Amos chapter 3, and I'm going to go somewhere and I'm going to go back to Brother Adam, let him finish his second point. So if you go to Amos chapter 3, this is what the Most High said to Israel this is when Israel was in the lands of captivity in Babylon. He says, hear this word that, this is Amos 3:1. Hear this word that Yahweh hath spoken against you, O children of Israel, against the whole family which I brought up from the land of Mizraim, saying, you only have I known of all the families of the earth. Therefore, I will punish you for all your iniquities. Okay. Okay, so what is that saying? Without reading the rest of the chapter, it's basically letting Israel know that Israel is going to be punished. In verse 2, he says, I will punish you for all your iniquities. Okay, so other people can do things and not receive the punishment that the children of Israel receive. Okay. We receive a punishment that other people get a slap on the hand for. Right? Now, if we go to Deuteronomy chapter 30, because what Brother Adam is trying to say is that the nation of Israel, all those judgments was fulfilled in the first century, and now Israel as a people don't exist no more. The church has taken their place. So Deuteronomy 30, verse 1, it says this. Thou shalt come, it shall come to pass when all these things are come upon thee, the blessings and the curse which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations where Yah thy Elohim hath driven thee, and shall return unto Yah thy Elohim, and shall obey his voice according to all that I command thee this day, thou and thy children with all thy heart, with all thy soul, that then Yahweh thy Elohim will turn thy captivity and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all the nations where Yah the Elohim have scattered thee. So he is making mention to the people of Israel being scattered. So if Israel ended in the first century, then this prophecy is a lie. Okay? And this prophecy goes with Joel chapter 3. It also goes with Zechariah 14. Okay, the Most High talks about gathering. Even the Messiah himself said in Matthew's 24 that he would gather the elect from the four corners, right? After the tribulation. So Israel as a physical people does not cease to exist, and they're not replaced, because if you go to Revelation, even Revelation, let's look at this right quick. Even Revelation chapter 7 and chapter 11. So go to the same chapter he's on Revelation revealed. If you go to Revelation chapter 7, I believe it is. Chapter 7. This is after the tribulation. This 144th seal, right? You can read it. It talks about, after these things I saw 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. And I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living Elohim, and he cried with a loud voice to the 4 angels to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea, not Israel, to hurt the earth, which is the same word, gay. And saying, hurt not the earth, right? So in his estimation, everywhere gay is supposed to be Israel. So that would say, hurt not Israel and the sea, saying, hurt not Israel, neither the sea nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of Elohim in their foreheads. He says, and I heard a number of them which were sealed were 144,000 of the 12 tribes of Israel. Right now, if you keep going down, so Israel, the physical sea, is not done. And it didn't end in the first century, dodo brain. All right. Somebody said, brother, why do you attack? Listen, sometimes you got to attack a spirit in the right way, make them mad. That's why I say dodo brain, to make you mad, so you can want to try to prove that I'm wrong. Dodo brain. All right. After this, I beheld, lo, a great multitude which no man could number, of all nations, kindreds, and tongues, and stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes and palms in their hands. Right? Now, so you got the 12 tribes, and then you have all nations. So for the Hebrew Israelite dodo brains that teach Israel's only going to be saved, you are a foolish one, because you don't know the book that you're supposed to be teaching from. You as an Israelite were called to be a priest to the other nations, not a priest to yourself. It's foolishness, stupidity, right? And that's the reason why some of them camps hate me, because they know they know I'm right, and they can't debate it, because it's right there in the scripture. It's right there in the manuscript, right? All right. So, no, brother Adam, you're way off. You missed it. Leviticus 26 and 18 is not a verse that solidifies that the 7 trumpets, bowls, and seals were fulfilled in the first century Israel. Wrong. Go back to the table on that one. All right. Next point, brother Adam.
In the language which says that the beast was given to the burning flame. Daniel 7:11 says this: I watched till the beast was slain, and his body destroyed and given to the burning flame. And similarly, here's what Revelation 19:20 says: the beast was captured, and with him the false prophet, who worked signs in his presence, by which he deceived those who received the mark of the beast, and those who worshipped his image. These two were cast alive into the lake of fire, burning with brimstone. So, pretty strong language there. If the Roman Empire was the beast of Revelation, as I used to teach and as so many teach, how was the Roman Empire, or even Europe, captured, slain, destroyed, burned, and cast into the lake of fire?
Okay, hold on, brother.
Roman.
I'm going to answer that question for you, because it's a future prophecy. Rome is not done, right? If you go to Revelation, and we did this on another video, you got 7. According to Daniel, you got 7 powers of 7 beasts, right? That were the 7 nations that the children of Israel were in captivity under. For example, Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Medes, Persians, Greeks, Romans. That's 7. Revelation talks about an 8th one. Okay, which had 2 horns, which would be considered what? England and America are the 2 horns, right? And that is the 8th. So this prophecy is a future prophecy. It's not a prophecy that was set to be fulfilled in the first century AD. And the reason why is, let me explain this to you. If you don't have the real Israelites, then these prophecies going to look crazy. And now you got to try to theorize when did these prophecies happen? Because if you got a people in Israel in 1948, then you have what? Missed it. You got to connect the right people in prophecy for the prophecies to make sense. The Messiah himself, who you say you follow, you call him Jesus. He said, and that's not the Messiah. I'm going to say it until somebody fall out their chair. The Messiah is Yahshua. That was his name, named after the Father, Yah, as in hallelujah, right? Now, he said that he would gather the elect. He didn't say he would get up and go back to Israel on their own. When he comes, he's going to come according to Revelation 11, and he's going to overthrow the governments. That connects with Daniel 7. And I'm reducing some reading. You can read it on your own. Go to Daniel 7 and read it for yourself. All right? So no, it's not talking about Rome of that day. And Rome of that day didn't die. They reemerged under the two horns, which is England and America. Okay? That's what happened. So Rome has continued. How do I know? I've been to England, been to UK, London. The foothold of Rome is all in there. The Parliament. Right? So Rome was divided into two. If you go and look at the prophecies of Daniel, Rome was divided into two, the papacy and the royalty. Okay? The religion and the kingship of Rome. Now they have a queen, the queen of Rome. And they have a history behind that because they, the males was doing all kinds of abominable things. And so the males end up dying off. Let me cut this heat off here. I'm blowing up. Okay, okay, Brother Adam, see what you got.
Rome actually came out of the Jewish-Roman War stronger than ever. The 2nd century AD was Rome's strongest century.
So all these points he's going to make now are just mute points. So I'm just going to let him talk.
And if we think about Nero, who many say is the beast in the singular sense, yes, he was killed with...
Well, that's because the church said Nero was a beast. That's wrong.
Sword, his own sword. But he was not captured, he was not burned. Rome was also not captured, Rome was also not burned.
Now, a good reading also, that just came in my mind while I'm listening, is the Ladder of Jacob, where he talks about the children of Israel being oppressed by the sons of Esau, Jacob's brother, until the end. So that's what, once you understand that these prophecies are based on Israel, according to Daniel chapter 9 and Jerusalem, then you understand. Okay, now he's going to make a point that I can agree with because on one of his other points, okay? But let's let Brother Adam go ahead.
But Israel was. Jerusalem was. The temple, the city. So I want to suggest that this language of being slain and burned very much fits Jerusalem and Israel and really does not fit Rome at all. And Revelation
So we cover that. It does cover Rome, but it's a future prophecy on the revised Rome. Okay?
1 even goes on to say that the followers of the beast and the false prophet would have their flesh consumed by the birds. Very specific.
So does Deuteronomy 28. Deuteronomy 28 says that the fowls of the air would eat them. So what's your point?
Did that happen to the Roman?
And not only that, but then I'm going to read something else, and if I get some time, I'm going to show you where the birds going to have another meal at the end. So the birds are going to eat the flesh of kings and all of them, the great people of the earth, right? When the Messiah returns and when he does what he's going to do with his army, which is Israel. Okay.
Roman Empire? Did that happen to the followers of Nero and the Roman Empire, or did that happen to the followers of the Zealots? Israel. It did. It very much did. Not only in Jerusalem, but even...
Just an little side point. There was a lot of killing going on amongst Israel. So to say that was fulfilled in first century, what about the Maccabean period when the people was killed under Antiochus Epiphanes and first Maccabees? Was that fulfillment of the 7 bowls? Right? Israel was going through all kinds of attacks and killings. They were killing Israelites. So that's been a continuous thing happening to Israel. So you can't exclude that and say because you have a historical record from Josephus, and Josephus is not alluding to that this is completion of the prophecy that was the vision that was seen by Yochanan, the apostle of the Messiah, Yahshua HaMashiach. Okay?
3 years later in AD 73 at Masada, when about 700 or so committed mass suicide and their bodies were laying there. It was all discovered the next day by the Romans, who were shocked at what they had done. So the next point I'm going to look at is...
But also, because we know who the true Israelites are, we look at the killings that happened to us coming across the transatlantic slave trade. If anybody want to say these are judgments that happen, I mean, you might try to say that they were the sevenfold judgments. Okay? But you think that the so-called African Americans, Negroes that was killed was just a freak of nature. It had nothing to do with prophecy, had nothing to do with the scriptures. It was just something that just happened.
From Revelation 13, just verse 10. We'll look a little bit later at...
Okay, so Revelation 13:10, this is his next point. Listen in.
More of that chapter. But verse 10, I think, says something very significant. The question is, who was killed by the sword and went into captivity? In this verse, we see a prophecy about the ultimate fate of the beast. And this prophecy was supposed to be a comfort to the saints who were under persecution. In this verse, Revelation 13, John writes, "He who leads into captivity shall go into captivity. He who kills with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints."
So he contradicts himself right there. He's trying to say that he's going to say, but he contradicted himself, because if the saints, who are the saints? Not the Christian church. The saints in Daniel 9 tells you who the saints are. And just using that word, Daniel 9. Okay. And let's see, what verse is that? Daniel 9, and where it says he shall wear out the saints of the Most High. That's Daniel 7. My bad. Daniel 7. 7:25. It says he shall speak great words against the Most High and shall wear out the saints. Who's the saints? Israel. And the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the king. This is verse 27 of Daniel. Under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints. What saints? The people of Israel. That's who the saints are. So when you go to Revelation, his verse, he used Revelation 13 and 10. This 13 and 10 basically is telling you what? Here is the patience of the saints. Who are the saints? Israel. So how could Israel, first off, Israel didn't lead into captivity. The Messiah said in Luke 21:24, Mr. Adam, that in Luke 24:24, somebody said, "Brother, how can you reach a person by calling them names?" I didn't call anybody a name. I just use expressions. I'm trying to make you think. And sometimes the best way to make a person think is by making them mad, right? So don't get mad. Prove me wrong and I'll shut up. All right. Now, he said, Revelation 13 and 10, right? It says, okay, he that led captive shall go into captivity. And okay, so now, what I was trying to show you was in Luke 21 and 24. It specifically says they shall fall by the edge of the sword and shall be led away captive into all nations. So he that leadeth into captivity, not he that was led into captivity, is talking about those that was taken in, that those that took others in captivity shall go into captivity. When will that happen? All right, that will happen, and I got some notes, so I'm going to throw some in here so you can see. Now, first off, I want to go to Joel chapter 3, which clearly explains that the Most High is going to allow those who took Israel into captivity to go into captivity. All right. So Joel 3 says, in those days and at that time when I shall bring the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem. The so-called scholars will tell you that Jerusalem didn't come back from captivity. It was only Judah. That's why they got the terminology that they use, Jew, which basically is only a reference to the southern kingdom of Israel called Yehuda. You have a few stragglers in there. Some Benjamites may have infiltrated that maintain that got in partnership with the children of Yehuda, because Shaul, who the world calls Paul, was a Benjamite. Then you have some priests that got in there, because if you go to 2 Kings chapter 17, when the king of Assyria took the children of Israel out the land, and they appointed their own priests to be priests, and they was worshiping their gods, and they was trying to worship the Most High. They was doing mixed worship. And what did they do? They brought a priest back from captivity. So that's how you have priests, and his children would be priests, because the priests are sons of the priests. Okay? So Joel says that he shall bring the captivity of Yehuda, because in 70 AD, it was Yehuda that went into captivity. And then he says Yerushalayim, which is what? The other tribes. So Israel, the sevenfold judgments was not fulfilled in the first century, Mr. Adam. He said, I will also gather all nations and bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat. This is verse 2, Joel 3 and 2. And will judge them there for my heritage, for my people, my heritage, not the Christian church, my people, my heritage. Who's his heritage? Israel. We can do exegesis and go through this word heritage and show you every time he talks about heritage, he's talking about the people of Israel, the physical, natural seed, not spiritual, the physical, natural born seed. All right. Israel, my heritage, Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land. See, it's clear. Scattered among the nations, right? And they have cast lots for my people. Okay. So when you find a people that have a history where they had lots cast for them, you found Israel. They have given a boy for a harlot and sold a girl for wine. Yeah, what have you to do with me, O Tyre and Sidon, and all the coasts of Palestine? Will you render me recompense? If you recompense me swiftly and speedily, will I return your recompense upon your own head? Because you have taken my silver, my gold, and have carried in your temples my goodly pleasant things. The children of Yehuda, the children of Jerusalem, have you sold to the Grecians, that you might remove them far from the border. Behold, I will raise them up out of the place where you have sold them. So Israel was not completed during the first century, Mr. Adam and you preterists. Then he says, I'm going to raise them up by the place where you sold them, right? That connects with Ezekiel 37. Okay? You know what they're talking about, speaking to go to the valley of dry bones, and can these bones live, right? And he spoke to the bones, and the bones started coming together, the sinews and all of the intricate things in that chapter. And he said that these bones are the whole nation of Israel. Then at the end, he says, I will bring them into the land. I'll show it to you. Okay. Remind me to go there. Okay. Like you can remind me while I'm on the video, right? Okay. So, children of Yehuda, children of Jerusalem, have you sold to the Grecians that you might remove them far from their border? Behold, I will raise them up out of the place where you have sold them, and I will return your recompense upon your own head. And verse 8, I will sell your sons and your daughters. Right? I hear a ticking going on. I will sell your sons and your daughters into the hands of the children of Yehuda, and they shall sell them to the Sabians, to a people far off, for Yah has spoken it. See that? So he says, I will sell your sons and your daughters into the children of Yehuda. That's the last of the tribes that was taken in captivity. Okay? So, first century, the judgment, sevenfold judgments, was not completed in the first century, Mr. Adam. All right. Now, I got tons and tons. Let me let Mr. Adam finish his thought before he goes to the fourth point, and then I'm gonna give you some verses that you can look at. Okay. All right, Mr. Adam.
Now, again, there certainly were some Romans who were killed in the Jewish-Roman War, but ultimately, overall, the final result was a great victory for Rome and mass casualties for Israel.
He's singing a song in the dance.
The pilgrims who had come up to Jerusalem for the feast and got trapped in the city, and so many were killed in AD 70. So this verse also says, he who leads into captivity will go into captivity. The Romans took people captive, but here's a question. Were the Romans themselves taken captive? No, they were not. The Jewish...
So once again, that's futuristic, because if you go back to Joel chapter 1, he says, in those days and in that time, when I shall bring the captivity. So that captivity happens when Israel goes back home. All right. Now, I did mention something. I'm going to let him go back and talk. I think I have a couple of verses in here. Do I have Ezekiel? Let me get my seeing eye glasses here. All right. Do I have Ezekiel 37 in the rotation here? Let's see. No, I don't. Okay. So I'm going to read that right quick. Okay. Now, I'm just going to read a few verses here. Ezekiel chapter 37. You know, y'all have heard before. Can these bones live? And the ankle bones connected to the ankle bones connected to the whatever. the foot bone connected to the knee, the leg bone connected to the knee bone. Here the further. No, that's stupid. Ignorance. This is a prophecy, Ezekiel 37, about the children of Israel. All right. Now, if you go through the whole chapter, when you finally get down to where he says, let's see, oh my mercy. I want to get to where he said the whole house of Israel. And let's see, what verse is that? The whole house of Israel. Okay, so that's Leviticus, that's verse 11. Okay. Okay, so you got verse 11 and verse 25. So Ezekiel 37:11 says, then he said to me, son of man, these bones are the whole house of Israel. Not just Judah, Yehuda, but the whole house, right? The northern tribes that never came back to the land, right? The whole house of Israel, behold, they say our bones are dried up and our hope is lost. We are cut off for our parts. Go down to 25, right? All right, 25 says what? 37:25 says, and they shall dwell in the land. Let me go up a little bit. He said, let's go up a little bit here. Oh my man. Let's go up to oh man, I'll tell you, boy, this is good stuff here. Let's start, okay, 21, we read that, right? Okay, and they said to them, thus says Yah Elohim, behold, I will take the children of Israel from among the heathens. Mr. Adam, not fulfilled in the first century, Mr. Adam. I will take Israel from among the heathens, whether they be gone, and will gather them on every side and bring them into their own land. And I will make them one nation in the land of the mountains of Israel, and one king shall be king over them all. They shall be no more two nations, neither shall they be divided into kingdoms any more at all. So that never happened. That never happened. Israel was never united under one kingdom, under an Israelite king. Okay? When Israel came back into the land during the time, ever since the last king went into captivity, Israel was under the kings under the Babylonian, and then they went under the kings of the Gentiles, the Europeans, the sons of the progenitor of the Europeans, or the white race. Okay. He said, brother, that's a racist statement. It's a fact. Israel was underneath of the Europeans, the white race, ever since they left from under the rulership of King Nebuchadnezzar. Okay, now let's see. Neither shall they defile themselves any more with their idols, nor with their detestable things, nor with any of their transgressions, but I will save them out of all their dwelling places, Mr. Adam, wherein they have sinned, and will cleanse them. So shall they be my people, and I will be their Elohim. And, oh, here's this. And Dawid, my servant, shall be king over them. So Dawid is coming back. How about that? And they all shall have one shepherd. They shall also walk in my judgments and observe my statutes and do them. And they shall dwell in the land that I have given unto Yaakov, my servant, wherein your fathers have dwelt, and they shall dwell therein, even they and their children and their children's children forever, and my servant Dawid shall be their prince forever. Moreover, 26, I will make a covenant of peace with them. It shall be an everlasting and everlasting and an everlasting and an everlasting covenant. How long is everlasting? He says, I will make an everlasting covenant with them, and I will place them and multiply them, and will set my sanctuary in the midst of them forevermore. 27, my tabernacle also shall be with them. Yes, I will be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. And the heathen, who are the heathens? The other nations. Okay? Christians, Europeans are other nations. You could be a believer and be a European, but you're still other nation. You're not an Israelite. You're not a spiritual Israelite. You're other nations. You're partakers, not takeovers. It's time for you all to take the back seat and let the Israelites rise to the occasion. The Lion of the tribe of Yehudah is coming back, brothers and sisters. You better know it. So he says what? My tabernacle also shall be with them. This is Ezekiel 37:27. I will be their Elohim. They shall be my people. And the heathen shall know that I, Yahweh, do sanctify Israel, when my sanctuary shall be in the midst of them forevermore, Mr. Preterist. All right. Now, I didn't read it in Deuteronomy 30, but we can go back to 30 and see the self same thing in Deuteronomy 30, brother. Dear sister. Okay, now check it out. Deuteronomy 30. The Most High said, verse 5, Deuteronomy 30, and I and Yahweh thy Elohim will bring thee into the land which thy fathers possessed, and thou shalt possess it, and he will do thee good and multiply thee above thy fathers. What does it say? He will bring thee into the land that thy fathers possessed. Israel did not cease to exist in the first century, and it was not replaced by the Christian church, brother. No kind of how, no kind of form, no kind of fashion, no kind of shape. You don't know the book. All right? Watch this now. I'm not done. And Yahweh the Elohim will circumcise thine heart and the heart of thy seed. Which means, not only is it just going to be the natural adults, but they're going to continue to have children. Did you know for 1,000 years when the Messiah comes, there's going to be Israelites. It's going to be brought back from other lands. We'll cover that if we get the time to do it. I might have to go into a part 5 because I'm an hour already into this. But I'm going to finish this point. We're going to come back, right? But let me finish this out, and then we'll come back with part 5, I think it is. All right, now. And that's why will circumcise the heart of thine seed to love Yahweh the Elohim with all thy heart, with all thy soul, with all that thou mayest live. So what? You're going back to obeying the law, brothers and sisters. I know you think you're under grace, but you're going back to the law. Get ready. Going back to it. I know you thought you were spared from it. You're going to obey the law. Because Isaiah 2, Hosea 2, chapter 2, says the law shall go forth from Jerusalem. The Revelation says that the Messiah is going to rule the nations with the rod of iron. You're going to follow the law. And your grace ain't going to do nothing for you. Right? All right, so 37 says what? And Yahweh the Elohim will put all these curses upon your enemies. See that? That goes with Joel chapter 3. Gonna put the curses on your enemies and on them that hate you, which persecute you. So the physical born Israel to this very day is being hated and being persecuted by our enemies. White supremacy is our enemy. Donald Trump is a white supremacist. That's why the Christian evangelicals won't let him go, because they're white supremacists too. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. And thou shalt return and obey the voice of Yahweh to do all his commandments which I command thee this day. Right? And Yah will make thee plenteous. See that? Verse 8, he said you're going to return to do his commandments. I didn't say it. Let me just kind of address something right quick. Somebody said, brother, why are you so into this? Because I'm a prophet of Yah. And I got one focus and one interest in this thing is Israel. I'm tired of this captivity and I want us to go home. And the Most High got to shake your faith in your prophets so you can stop and think things over so we can all get up out of this place and go back home. And when the Messiah comes, when his number has been reached, so we can get this earth brought back under righteousness, because it is not under righteousness in no form, fashion, or shape, from the right to the left. You should want to see righteousness in the nation, happiness, peace, tranquil. Okay? Now, I can't speak for no other Israelite teacher. Okay? I know when the Most High called me to this, he called me to proclaim his word before I knew I was an Israelite. And I ran from it. I didn't want to be no speaker, no preacher or teacher of the Bible. I had other plans. Most I said, because I'm going to put you in my cabinet to be my ambassador, to speak my word. And there is not one Hebrew Israelite that can stop me. I've had some of them want to shut me down. Brother, you shouldn't teach that. You know what? You didn't call me. You didn't send me. And if you was the Most High, then you have some rank and you have some say so. But the Most High called me to do this. I'm not doing it because I want to do it. I get pushed and driven to do it. The Most High pushes me to do this. I mean, I have a wonderful life. I'm blessed tremendously, health-wise. My accomplishments of things that I have obtained in life. I've been around the world to some degree. And I've lived in many places and I've seen a lot of things and I've lived a good life and I've enjoyed life. So I don't have to come on YouTube and do this. I don't need anybody's money. You know, I appreciate the gifts and love that people send, but the Most High, he is my resource. Even though I've been out of a job since March, the Most High still is my resource, right? As long as I got health and strength and energy, he's going to provide for me, right? So if you send me a love offering, I appreciate that. I don't take it lightly because it's your money that you work hard for. When you give your money to me, I appreciate it with my whole heart, brothers and sisters. But you don't have to do it. But because you choose to do so, I appreciate it, right? And I love you for that, okay? But I'm not bought. Money don't buy me. I mean, if money bought me, brothers and sisters, I wouldn't be preaching and teaching this. I'd preach and teach something that would tickle the ears of the people and make them feel goosebumps going down their spines and make them send thousands of dollars. But I'm not bought. All right. So 29 says, the Yahweh, the Elohim, will make thee plenteous in every work of thy hand, in the fruit of thy body, and in the fruit of thy cattle, and the fruit of thy land, for good. For Yahweh will again rejoice over thee for good, as he rejoiced over thy father. See that? That is the flip of what? Leviticus 26 and Deuteronomy 28 talks about all the judgments. But now he says, when you return back to his covenant, he said he'll make you plenteous. He's going to rejoice over us, right? For good, as he rejoiced over our fathers when they were in righteousness and right standings, right? Abraham was in right standings, right? Isaac was in right standings, right? Yaakov was in right standings, right? It wasn't until the 12 sons came on the scene that wickedness crept in. You can go to Judges chapter 3. You say, bro, that's not true. Yes, it is. Go to Judges chapter 3. It talks about the children of Israel dwelt among the Canaanites, Hittites, Perizzites, Hivites, Gergesites, and all the ites. It says they took their daughters and married them and gave their daughters to their sons and married them, and they served their deities. Look at that. That was the beginning of the end. All right. Now, you don't believe me? Go read Judges chapter 3 for yourself. All right. Now, I want to make sure I gave you the right one. Was it Judges chapter 3? Okay. Remind me to go there now to make sure I give you the right reference. I think it was Judges chapter 3. Matter of fact, I'll do it right now. Okay. So let's see. Judges chapter 3 and 1. Right. So Judges chapter 3. Okay. Now going back to Deuteronomy 30 so I can finish this out. Deuteronomy 30 and I know what verse I was in. I don't know where I was. He said they will rejoice over thee, but the word okay, let me get back up. Right, so that was verse 9, verse 10. If thou shalt hearken to the voice of Yahweh the Elohim to keep his commandments, See, y'all keep wanting to be under grace. Y'all want to obey the commandments. The Most High is saying, if you keep the commandments, that is the kicker. The kicker is not you knowing you're an Israelite, because the children of Israel knew they were Israelites, but they went into captivity still. Israel went into captivity. Why? Because they worshiped pagan idols. They worshiped pagan deities. They offered their children as sacrifices unto Satan, right? They disobeyed the law, statutes, and commandments. They disregarded or disrespected each other. They covered thy neighbor's wife, neighbor's house, and neighbor's ox, ass, all of that. Right? Now, I was talking to a beloved Moray on last evening, and this is a time when, see, Israel, we got to stop recycling the same Israelites from one camp to another camp. It's time for us to get those ones I'm after the ones that says that y'all crazy. There's no truth in the Hebrew Israelite doctrine. That's the one I want. The one that you're Israel, you're all right. You go there to somebody else's camp. I want the one that I want the Christian that is saved, sanctified, and full of the Holy Ghost. Because I know if you got that passion like that in your Christian Pentecostal mindset, when you get exposed to true brothers and sisters, you will be a force to reckon with. No devil in hell can stop you. I came out of a Pentecostal church, speaking in tongues, foaming in the mouth, and all of that. I've seen the dead raised. I've seen people healed, right? So I'm not ignorant to that. But the thing I'll say with that is signs. No one saw more signs than Israel. But signs is not going to save you. The devil can perform signs. What's going to save us is the word of Yah and the love of Yah, that we are willing to be obedient and to obey all that he commanded us this day, as he said in Deuteronomy 30. That's the kicker. Not you identifying that you are a physical Israelite because Israel is black, brother. Who gives a care? I mean, that's a fact, but the reality matter is your flesh means nothing if you're not under the covenant, or I should say over the covenant. All right, let me get back so I can reduce this section down and then go to the next part. So I got I got some verse. I'm gonna come back and in this, but I'm going to kind of close out with this one here, okay? And thou shalt hearken to the voice of Yahweh the Elohim to keep his commandments and his statutes, which are written in this book of the law. And if thou turn unto Yahweh the Elohim with all thy heart and with all thy soul, okay? For this, he says, for this commandment which I command thee this day is not hidden from thee, neither is it far off. It is not in heaven that thou shouldst say, who shall go up for us to heaven to bring it to us, that we may hear it and do it. Neither is it beyond the sea that thou shouldst say, who shall go over the sea for us to bring it unto us, that we may hear it to do it. So, for those of you that have that, well, brother, I want to see the original Hebrew manuscript. You don't need it. The next verse is going to tell you where it is, where you can get it. He said, but the word, verse 14, is very nigh unto thee, in thy mouth and in thy heart, that thou mayest do it. So what is it that the Most High put it in you? It's in your conscience. And the written letter is just a confirmation of the impartation. And with that said, I'm going to take a break. We're going to come back with part 5. Until next time, shalom, shalom, shalom.